Welcome back to part 3 of changes for Untangle version 10. Previously we were discussing the VLAN interfaces. The other change to the networking is that we allow you to set DHCP options on each interface that's a LAN. This allows you to make the changes in a nice format without having to put some encryptive options in comma format as you did previously. This will make it much easier to be very clear on what DHCP settings you're setting for every interface. And that's available for any non-WAN interface. We've also added a new state to interfaces. It's called disabled. And disabled is pretty much like if you unplug a network cable from that interface. We wouldn't have any connections. This is pretty useful that it doesn't, interfaces that are not used are not in the routing table. It also allows you, if you have to do some debugging remotely, to disable various networks to see if a particular problem is coming from a particular network. It's quite useful. It's kind of a minor feature, but it can really save in time on debugging networks, especially when you're remote. Another feature that's been highly requested is being able to rename interfaces. As you notice, we got rid of the DMZ default name because it really didn't make sense anymore, because most people have multiple NICs on a particular Untangle. And there was not necessarily it's going to be a true DMZ. So anyways, any interface can now be renamed. If you just go to edit, and you can change this to any interface, any name you like. For example, my third interface. Done and apply, and now I've renamed it. That goes along with the external and internal default names. They can be changed also. Makes it quite nice because you can label those areas and so forth. Another change for version 10 is that the packet filters have been renamed as input filter rules, and they're down here. So they work pretty much the same type of conditions as firewall. It's just in a different area. Pretty much work identical. We did add some 2 new standard filters rules. It's allow SSH, that's off by default, and allow HTTPS on WANs, that's off by default also. But this allows you to enable and disable SSH from the GUI, which is another requested feature. So obviously there's a lot of changes in networking. Just this is some of the first initial ones. We'll take a look at our next application, which is that had changes. It's WAN Balancer. Before, you could only set routes which were from incoming to outgoing, from the inside of the network to the outside. Now you can pretty much apply any kind of rule that a normal firewall conditions would be. You can do destination by port, by your source interface, or protocol. Makes it pretty easy to change if you have like specifics of where you want a particular type of traffic to go out a particular WAN. And this is if you have multiple WANs. This next feature has been probably my favorite, just because I've used it quite a bit, and that's OpenVPN. Before, when you configured OpenVPN, you had 2 choices. You could either be a server, where you would receive incoming OpenVPN connections, or you were a client, which was site-to-site, where you were connecting to another Untangle to connect the network behind that to some remote connection. Now with the version 10 of OpenVPN, you're allowed to actually be both the client and the server. This makes cases where you have a remote office and most of the people that work in that office, when they're away from the office, will use the network resources in that particular office. But you have another satellite office that you also want to connect to, so you have connectivity between the offices. So now you can do both. You can actually be a server, which is off by default. You can connect that so people can connect to this particular Untangle. And you can also be a client, which means this Untangle will connect to another remote Untangle. Makes it quite useful that you can do both now. So makes less reasons to use IPsec because you got the dual features now. So it's less where one server is handling all VPN connections and people have to navigate their way to some remote network. One other feature of the OpenVPN is that we've added a new Windows VPN client that handles Windows 8 a lot better, and also fixes the bug where you couldn't set the password on the VPN client in Windows. The new upgraded version will allow that. The next application that has been improved in version 10 is the application control. We actually have a new engine that's installed on that, and it should apply rules, should detect traffic much better than before. One of the key ones that it detects traffic better is Skype and BitTorrent, and also UltraSurf. Those are detected much better and should provide better control of your network in the future.